Thanks to the transparency of Russian corruption, we are able to get a lot of data from the gray market, starting always with open source data, trying to find out what has been published voluntarily or involuntarily on the wide internet. It's a global operation.
There was some concern today as Vice President Kamala Harris continued her tour of Asia. Her flight from Singapore to Vietnam was delayed for several hours because at least one U.S. diplomat had to be medevaced from Hanoi over the weekend after suffering from a mysterious illness, possibly related to the so-called Havana syndrome, which has sickened hundreds of U.S. diplomats.
In August of 2021, in Vietnam, 11 people were reported being struck with Havana syndrome.
60 Minutes Overtime.
If this is what we've seen with the hundreds of cases of anomalous health incidents, I can assure you that this has become probably Putin's biggest victory.
This week on 60 Minutes is the next installment of our 5-year investigation into what is known as the Havana syndrome. I'm Michael Ray. I'm a producer at 60 Minutes.
I'm Oriana Zil de Granados. I'm a producer at 60 Minutes.
I had no symptoms prior to my attack.
Havana syndrome, which is known by the government term anomalous health incidents. It's incidents that have occurred to government employees all around the world. And the medical professionals who've looked at these people usually describe it as a traumatic brain injury without any hit to the head. Our sources had been...
So at this point, we're looking at countries on every continent except Antarctica.
The medical professionals who've looked at these people usually describe it as a traumatic brain injury without any hit to the head. Our sources had been telling us since the beginning, really, that they suspected Russia as one of the lead perpetrators.
He was able to dive into information in Russia data sources that we had no access to.
The document showed that Russian intelligence lobbied for and received permission from President Putin to provide exclusive technology that only the Russians have developed to their friends in the Vietnamese security services. And part of it related to acoustic and high-frequency equipment for detection of movement and changes in the human body. And that's usually doublespeak for an offensive.
The one where you have to explain to that second set of parents or spouses, family, friends, why the system failed, why a killer was out on bond, why someone served a short prison sentence, was paroled, a case was dismissed or plea bargained. New York City police officer Jonathan Diller was killed by someone with nearly 24 prior arrests who had served time for a violent crime. And law-abiding people are increasingly asking how and why. How does someone unlawfully in the country remain here to commit more crimes? Why is someone with a violent past in possession of a firearm he used to kill a police officer? Barry Latzer is a criminologist and emeritus professor at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice, and he joins us now. Welcome, Professor. Our system is reactive more so than proactive. Something bad happens and the system reacts. So why eliminate their voices? Last month on Super Tuesday night, I spoke with Juan Williams, Jessica Tarlov, and Harold Ford Jr. Those are not Biden-opposing Democrats. Those are not Lincoln Project Democrats. Those are not Democrats who really talk and act like Republicans. So why are some other networks filling their slots exclusively with Trump-opposing Republicans? If you want to know why someone supports Donald Trump, if you want to understand how the other side thinks, why not ask them? And how can you ever do that if you never hear from them? If you claim to want the truth, you got to confront it and cross-examine it and challenge it, expose it, but don't ignore it. Joining us now is Fox News contributor Joe Concha. Joe,
do you know, Trey, that the Washington Post has never endorsed a Republican presidential candidate in its history? So to your point, that means they endorsed Carter, not once but twice. They endorsed Walter Mondale, who won exactly one state, Minnesota, and Reagan probably could have won that if he wanted to. They endorsed people like John Kerry or Al Gore or Joe Biden. So that if they're really in touch with the country, it doesn't show it in their endorsements. And again, these newsrooms are completely controlled by liberals. And if you're a conservative, you're not going to get that promotion, or if you're a reporter who tries to do an objective job, you're not going to get that next contract because readers will revolt and other people in the newsroom will revolt. So people just keep quiet if they are conservative, or at least even down the middle, because they know they won't survive in those ecosystems if they don't conform to the narrative, Trey.
And I think what I would call common sense American values, patriotism, hard work, meritocracy, the kinds of things that I think for a long time we all took for granted, but that now, particularly in our politics, we don't see anyone engaging with this group. And this group is becoming more disenchanted with the way the system works, and they are looking around for political leadership and not finding it.
Is there a difference in your judgment in the values perceived, taught, encouraged between the upper 1% and what is called the middle class? I mean, is there a divide even in what is valued within those groups?
Yes, absolutely. And we have data on this. There have been some studies that have looked at these sort of elite, highly educated upper classes, the elite